Hopefully everybody in this room's heard of ISO 14001, or even waste and environment, what the policy is now, what the business is trying to incur and drive. I'm trying to move away from ISO 14001, because you mention that to an engineer, they're going to go, what you know what he's talking about. But if you mention waste and environment, and the way that we deal with the environment, then it brings things home. Where we currently are, and why I'm here, is to basically give an understanding of what we're trying to do as a unit across Openreach. We're a very small team, but also how we're working in the business to make this successful. What are ISO looking for? What does good look like across our sites? What does bad look like across our sites? And John and Derek will know I come to the meetings quite regularly and give them feedback of the issues we're finding, which I'll touch on briefly in this because there's some safety aspects that we've got to deal with as well. So my call out to you guys, we're a small team, we need help. You're an extra pair of eyes and ears on our patch. How do you raise your issues? How do you raise your escalations? Where do you work when nobody's listening to you? Where do you escalate? Various things like that. So that's the sort of thing we're looking for. So I want to give you an opportunity to share our concerns. I don't know if you know, but Openreach basically generate 8,000 tonnes of waste per year. So we're the biggest waste generators across the business. ISO 14001 came in about 20 months ago, where they just dropped on us and did a series of audits, and we failed drastically. And this is Lloyd's, this is an external auditor. And we failed from a perspective that with no policy. The waste skips weren't right, the buildings were in a mess, we had stuff all over the place, we had hazardous waste lying across the unit, we had everything. You name it, we failed. So at that time, Clive climbed over one of the directors, sort it. So all the directors went on the call at 6 o'clock in the morning, get across your sites and get them sorted because the auditors were due to come back in. It was panic. Luckily we scraped through. But then we looked at it and said, right, okay, let's go to a certain site, let's clear it, let's sort it out, let's walk away. As soon as we walk away, and Franco will tell you, it goes back to the way it was before. So we've got to have that focus across it all the time. I mentioned before, we're a very small team. We're in charge of about 7,500 engineers that work across our sites now. With civils are expanding, we're increasing the workforce, but also we're in charge of the internal aspect as well. So all internal buildings. When we first started, it was out there, what's going on in the yards. We're now responsible for what's going on in here. This site was audited about 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, and it passed. But it only passed because 3 weeks before our audit, we had everybody in here tidying it up. But I've walked it this morning, it's going back to the way it was. So anyway, so what's the cost of the business? £3 billion worth of government contracts if we don't have ISO accreditation. What does that mean? Fibre cities won't be rolling out. Civils won't be rolling out. We will not be doing any further work in the infrastructure because the government won't allow us to bid for it. But from our aspect as engineers and caring about the business and proving we do something about the environment is what can we do? And this is where my team's trying hard and working hard to make a difference. It was August 17 they came in and they looked across various sites. Now how did they do that? Use one off the phone. How did they do that? So basically, they came in and they did a series of audits on us. They were telling us 6 months in advance that they're going to come across our sites, which gives us 6 months to sort them out. We got through the audits. But now, they've moved from 6-month audits to monthly audits. So every month they're coming in now and doing audits on us. So we will get 15 sites in 6 months' time. We know where they are, we can get out there, we can sort them out. They're now putting pressure on us and giving us a month's notice. We're getting 3 months' notice for the sites, but they're coming every month, so there's churn every month, about 8-9 sites, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. So you can see the pressure putting on us. Not just Openreach, it's TSO, it's supply chain, it's CBRE, as was PNFS. Don't get me going on them at the moment because I've had it to you. But us as a team, we started originally with 10 yard marshals across 50 sites. We were given the budget to create 10 yard marshals with 3 managers, one in Scotland, one in Central, one in South. This is Andy Gill's patch. He's actually out there getting the audits ready at the moment, otherwise he'd have been here. So we started with 10 yard marshals across 50 sites. When we got through the first audit, they increased the 50 sites to 200 sites with 10 people. Then they increased to 200 sites and give us another 685 sites. So we're now 885 sites. So what they've done, they've cut them. So we've got T200, which are the 200 sites, which are the top waste generating sites. Then we've got the next tier 2 sites, which are 685 sites. The 200 is on the top producing sites. So 885 sites are responsible for it. We've now started and completed more or less the recruitment process. And this is how it splits across the country. That's the one vacancy in Bristol. Why? Nobody wants to be a yard marshal in Bristol. Everybody seems very happy down there, I don't know why. But Bristol is a problem for us. We've got fibre cities, we've got civils, we've got 2 big organised service teams, operational teams that are working out of Bristol. Massive. So we've got the traffic going in and out, it takes a lot of management. But as you can see, this is how it splits across the country, and we'll send these out after. What I'm asking these to do, and the managers, is to work with you guys, especially around here. Franco's in here. Franco's the yard marshal that's responsible. We're responsible for our Franco around the northwest.
So he's also responsible for Cumbria because I've had him up there.
Yeah, and he's responsible for Cumbria as well. But we've now got more yard marshals to support Franco. Him and Susan still work very closely together. So, but I want you guys to look at this, and I want you to start to work with them, because we'll start to reach out and look for that help. All right. So that's the patch the team as we look at it. With 3 managers and myself, and we're running the whole organisation around environmental waste. That's what I'm doing. If you've got any questions, just jump in, guys. Don't wait till the end. Okay, what does good look like then? So you guys know, you're out there, you've seen it. What do you think good looks like?
Can I just comment? You know, you said you looked round here before now.
Yeah.
I thought I'd look round here and I go through like other yard, and I thought this was great.
It's not too bad.
The disposal facilities, for example, with the blue bins down there for rags, filters, whatever is going, and I thought this was quite. But it's a different. You're looking through different items.
Yeah. If I looked out there, there's a skip been flight. There's a tent been flighted to the back of there. So that's not right.
But it's going back. Excuse me interrupting. But
That's
what Derek said before, you know, about USR role, about the exchanges. Oh yeah, we've got them tidy exchanges and everything, and all those of us who check exchanges, they're flipping dumping grounds.
Yeah.
You know, people just don't care.
And I'll go on to what we're trying. That's fine. Any questions come in, because I'll go into what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do to bring operational teams in and make them more accountable. So, last quick, what does good look like? All right. So green is fantastic. All the skips have got signage. All the skips are manageable. They're not overflowing. We've got them all in the right places, and all the locker areas of no waste. If you walk around the dead drop lockers, you will see something stored there that shouldn't be there, or even on top of the lockers. That's a safety issue. So where is it you go for help? How do you raise them concerns? Amber is where we get some cross-contamination. There is some out there at the moment. In the general waste skip, there's cable. That should be in the cable skip. But Lloyd's will pick up on that, and that's a failure. Okay? So it's just getting the mindset into our guys to say, I've got this, what do I do with it? And we've given them all the information now. They've got the waste guides. They've got relevant documentation, they've got the yard marshals. We did a waste day yesterday that the yard marshals can come to, that they can come to and say hi. We've got the escalation process. We're working with environmental champions now, which are managers across the business. But what else can we do? That's the stage I've got to.
Which sites do they tend to go to? Is the bigger sites like here in Preston?
Anything.
Because you go to a lot of the smaller exchanges and they are like dumping grounds, but you only have one bin. You don't have the different bins for different waste. So a lot of the time it all gets chucked in the red biffer bin that biffer come and collect. And then if there's no room in that, it gets scattered all over the yard. And also I've noticed a problem with, now we've got the pelipods and other agencies are coming into our exchanges to pick up their kit from these lockers, and they're dumping their own rubbish out their vans into our bins, environmentally affecting rubbish as well. You know, I don't know what the answer is for the smaller exchanges, but it is becoming a bigger problem.
Wigan's a typical example. If you look at Wigan, the pelipods at Wigan with waste on top, that's not our waste.
Yeah, exactly.
So I escalate that through supply chain who own the pelipod process, and they said they're sorting it.
Yeah.
And that's the feedback I'm looking for. If you've got sites where you've got pelipods out here, the contractor should come in, take the waste with them. It's not part of the contract, because we pay biffer to come into our yards and empty our skips.
Yeah.
So it's not part of the contract. So basically they shouldn't be doing that.
No.
But they're doing it, so what do we do to make it work? Now, on this site, I've got 4 managers upstairs, right? 4 managers who park outside, walk around the yard. Wigan, I've got 4 managers, park outside, walk around the yard. Shouldn't be up to my team to raise concerns with managers on site. We've got engineers getting out of the vehicles. Talk about that pride and patch that we used to talk about. It's everybody's problem. It's not my problem. It's everybody's, and it's the brand and it's the business. Yeah. So, amber again, gas bottles outside. Red is just a tip where you've got overflowing skips, blue rope all over the floor, gas bottles everywhere lying about, the waste around the site, cable drums all over the place.
Can I just interject there? That top picture you've got on a red is reminiscent of an exchange in Cumbria at Ulverston. Biffa, and I've seen the guy do this. The guy has actually come to empty the Biffa bin, and if he's found any cable in the bin, he's took it out the bin and thrown it on the ground behind it. How am I supposed to challenge him? How am I supposed to challenge him?
Even if he's not interested, registration and now we'll have him, because we have got a process now where we can go in and get them. Because Biffa, I made it mentioned before, Biffa are now up for tender. Biffa are up for tender, so they're going to be coming back into the business asking for the contract. Now I'm working with CBRE to say Biffa are a complete waste of time, because they'll come on here, if you look around the skips, they just pull up, take the skip, dump the new one and go. Even with our brand new signage put up, they lift the skip and drop the new skip on top of the signage.
Yeah, same problem in Barrow.
So we go back to that situation. There's not only me going on these sites. So there's an avenue we can use now, and I'm on a call at 8 o'clock every single morning with CBRE, giving them a hard time. So if you can give me a registration, send it through John or whatever, or raise it to Franco, the patch yard marshals, we'll deal with it.
One of the problems I have as a USR, is go up to certain sites, there's a lot of what I would call useless stores, rusted, no good. Flag it through to FS, and they're not interested because they say it's a store's item, it needs to be returned through the supply chain process. Now, no good to anybody, it's useless as a tool. So really all it needs is taken away and disposing of properly. But they're not interested because they say it's not their problem, it's supply chain's problem. But where do we stand with that? So we can't get things shifted. I've tried. A big one at the moment, some of the smaller ones, is scrap fibre. Nobody seems to want to entertain it. We're banging our heads against a brick wall basically all the time because FS don't want to know.
When you say raise it with FS, have you actually raised a job?
The raises, there's a lot of waste tipped at the site. And FS might come out and then they'll come back to we couldn't take it away because it's supply chain issue.
It's nothing to do with us.
And supply chain will say, well, it's not our problem because it's waste.
Yeah.
So we're getting passed from pillar to post all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of the problems is who is taking responsibility.
Yeah,
we'll flag it up to them, no problem.
My team will take responsibility because if you raise that with the help desk as a red under safety, it will drop into the yard marshal's work stack the day after.
Yeah.
So then every morning there's a work stack goes to the yard marshal that's categorised against the sites I've just told you. And if it's a red, they get 5 days to actually notify that they've picked it up and to clear it. They will deal with anybody that needs to remove that waste.
I was going to say, if you talk about fibre, that's actually a photograph of what I was trying to explain.
Can you send me that? Can you send me that after this meeting?
I'll give you all the photographs of that.
I'm talking, I know it's fibre like traffic signs, signage, old cable joints, cables on drums that don't have the return label on, all sorts, things like that. Yeah. And it's not like one shoe fits all. Someone will take all that away and deal with it. It's like, well, we'll do that bit, but that bit's nothing to do with us. So
this is what I'm going to call out at the end. This is where this patchworking is going to start to work, because if my yard marshals get notification from you on a job with your name on it, and you put on the job when you've raised it with the help desk, when they start to get their act together, they can categorise what the issues are, and he can speak to you directly and say, right, what's the list of issues? Then we can organise a site walk and we can get on it and sort it, because not only us will be on the site walk, we'll do the site surgery, there's a site walk with PNFS, CBRE, we'll do it with supply chain if need be, and we'll do it with the union, and we'll also do it with engineers and the senior managers of those engineers, because they don't like it, and I keep saying the operational managers don't like it when you draw in resource off their patch, and that's what we'll do. I'll say to them, I want 3 guys on that patch next week, they're going to move that waste. That's going to give them pain. They won't do it again. Do you understand what I mean? So I need that networking to take place because, you know, we get a lot of issues where people have said, previously, I'm banging my head against the wall, I can't do anything about it, because we've been out last year, we did a lot of road shows, and a lot of senior manager events, and a lot of road shows for the teams. And we did sections where we had everybody was coming up and saying, they've removed me with a rope skip. Well, who have you told about it? Well, who do I tell? Well, now, they know, because we're getting out there and we're telling them what we're about. And now there's more of us, we can support better.
Can I just say, regarding fibre waste, you know, obviously, your code is, if you're in any exchange where you've got fibre waste, whether it's internal or external, take a photograph of it and can you send it to the code? Because I believe forward these over to TSO because
There's a near miss.
yeah, because TSO now are taking ownership of the problems with fibre waste, I do believe.
And then it's
from the
sending it
meeting
to
on Monday. Really? Yeah. So, yeah, really? Yeah, apparently. So that was at the meeting on Monday I was at. So
Expect a lot of photographs, John.
So send them over.
I've been trying to do this for years.
And then we need to send them to Dave Hill.
Okay?
I think,
Can you move on?
if I may, Mel, just...
Sorry, there's a question. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it was just before we started, or when we first started, it was mentioned about time for USRs. If we had more time, you've got USRs that obviously do the building inspections, but more time, you can get more of a handle on this sort of thing before it gets out of hand. Because in some of the smaller exchanges, they are like bomb sites, whereas you seem mainly this sort of thing that we see, it seems to be concentrated around the TEC sites.
Yeah.
Whereas you can drive in here now and it all looks nice with all the skips. Some of the smaller ones do look like bomb sites, and maybe USRs can help
Yeah.
a lot more than we can now if we
Yeah.
had more time.
That's something
Extra
that's
time.
got to be pulled into, because I was with Andy Dickinson yesterday.
I know there's a big thing with time.
And Sam in Leeds covers Yorkshire, and he was saying he's going to get more involvement with his USRs.
Great.
So if Andy Dickinson's driving that, and he's a key sponsor of mine, and Scotland, and I'll talk on what we're doing in Scotland in a minute, they're coming on board with us now.
Brilliant.
So my piece is to drag operations in, because they're paying you guys to do, you know, the costs for you guys are coming out of their budget. So let's use that cost to get us through this, because every time we find something like that, my guys can't do it on their own. So straight away I go to operations, I want 4 guys next week. They don't like taking off the front part, because, and then they ask me for an estimate to go to the town. So no, I'm not giving you an estimate. This is your waste.
Yeah.
You with me? So,
Yeah.
can you just- right, I mentioned the audits, and I'll go back to what we're talking about in a minute when I close down. These are the audits that are due for May. So already, we've had 2 audits passed across Haverhill and Sudbury, and then we've got Monument, Atfield, which is an EE building, something to do with Open Reach. Then we've got Enfield Fleet and Arnold Road TC. So they're split right across the country. So what happens is, we get notification when the audit date is in 3 months' time. We'll then do a site surgery, and we'll pull in all the key people, and this is where possibly we could bring in the USR as well when we do that. Then actions, and then there's a plan put together of what needs to happen across that site to get it ready for audit. These are then reviewed daily to make sure we're on track. In here is the environmental champions, and I mentioned what they were before. Just before Christmas, Clive Selly gave an action to all the senior people and said, I want a site champion for all 885 sites. So that's a manager that we work with. That environmental champion are just starting to come on board now. So this, for that site, that's our link into Open Reach. And that's where my guys use this person. That's the manager. So that's the schedule that we've got for May. At the moment, we're looking okay. Monument isn't being audited till the 28th. Monument isn't really, it's not a yard, it's a building in London. But it's 8 floors. And every floor is full of historic waste. Used to be an old control, used to be an old consumer department. It's like they've just gone. It's like an horror film wherever we just walked out of the room.
You get it in a lot of exchanges and smaller ones, like you were saying before. You go in and there's rakes and rakes of computers and monitors, and it's all from the 80s and that, you know, and it's just sat there. Maybe I mean, if you were a scrap metal merchant,
Well,
it'd be ideal to go in round BT
Scrap value in
exchanges.
a lot of
They'd
it.
make a fortune
Yeah,
weighing
they
that lot.
Yeah. But that is 7 floors of historic waste. And I've got pictures, but I think on the day it's 7 floors of historic waste. Now, hang on a minute. PNFS CBRE have got a bit maintenance person or a housekeeper who's responsible for that building. Where the bloody hell have they been for the last God knows how long? You know, when somebody moves out of a room, there's a handover process. It's back to CBRE saying, I'm vacating this room, I no longer need it. They come in and audit it, take your stuff with you. It's not, it never happened. So now we're going through, but don't get me wrong, there are some rooms in there that are open reach, where we've got managers that have just co-located, and you end up with low engineering kit over there, somebody's left the business and it's all over here. They can't do that.
The Lloyds ever just turn up to sites and say, we just want to do one spec on it, you know? Or does it always
touch
keep
on
on
that.
that?
Touch on that in a minute. Because not only have we got Lloyds now that's doing the audits on us, we've got group internal audits that are doing as well. And they've just targeted Scotland for all of July. We're going to do 24 sites.
And you don't know which sites they're going to do.
We know 7 of them.
You go back to Monument now, what you're saying, you've gone across that site, it's on 8 floors. How do you get all that shifted?
Sorry?
How do you get all that historic waste shifted? Who takes
A lot of
ownership?
it is, what we do is we work out who's it is first. The initial site work will tell who's on it, so it could be, it's probably TSO. If it's all computers, all desktops, things like that, it's TSO. Personal waste, we've got drawers full of personal information, training records, one-to-ones. That's got to be dealt with by a contractor. Because of the volume that's waste in there, CleanCare, who's a contractor that works for CBRE, they've been on site now for 2 weeks cleaning the building. So we're paying, CBRE are paying a contractor to come in and clear this historic waste. Now, if I need an operations team to go in and clear historic waste that's open reach, that's not operations' fault. That's the system that's let them down. So I will back them up with an estimate to cover the time. If you guys need to come in on historic waste, I'm more than happy for you to come in and I'll cover it with an estimate or whatever. But we've got to get that site ready. We've got to get it green. We can't move all the furniture, so as long as it's stored neatly and it's taped off and it's there for future use, then you can see what we're up against. If you just want to go to the next one. Right. Those are the May sites. These are the June sites. And these are all the sites in Scotland that are being audited in July. Of which, all these are group internal audit. Our teams are being totally ignorant at the moment, and I mean that. They don't care. Bins overflowing, and you know, take it out to your vehicle, tape it up, put a new one up there. Shirts left on the floor, glass shirts left on the floor, glass, everything. I mean, we've got contractors, yeah, I've got in and got them. I've got 2 contractors that weren't doing the right thing in Manchester, and I got them. That was Mark Trollford that escalated to me. He actually had some fibre waste on that floor. I found out who the contractors were. They went there the next day and they were witnessed not doing the right thing. They'd gone. And the next thing that will happen, it'll be our people that go. Because this is serious. You know, it's part and parcel of the job, it's part and parcel of using the sin bin, it's part and parcel of disposing waste correctly. Can't expect a cleaner to go in and move fibre waste. It's class, it's hazardous waste. It's got to be bagged up and put into the right skip. So whatever conversations you're having in team meetings, whatever, drive this home. This is the most serious thing we're finding at the moment. Yeah, we've got cross-contamination. Yeah, we've got historic waste. This is the big problem now. If anybody wants a poster, I can get as many posters as you want.
Send us an email with it on.
E3 size, just send me an email with the address you want them delivered to and how many, and we'll get them to you. I've just sent that 150 across to TSO. TSO put them up across exchanges at the minute. So we need to keep driving, you know, we've put loop particles in. If you read the loop recently, the fen came out with fibre waste in it. We had a section in the fen. We're driving it through the seniors, we're still seeing the same thing. I get escalations from TSO. You might send it to TSO, they send it to me as an e-message. But when we talk about serving a problem onto the patch, we're now talking about putting together an environmental critical defect. So that if we're constantly asking the team to do the right thing, they're not listening, we'll serve them a critical defect. And anything like this, once I've got these managers on patch, and each of these managers own a building, they'll be served a critical defect. And that's a performance measure. That will be built into the performance stats. Because if you keep giving the manager the pain, it's going to be cascaded down to the engineers. And if the engineers do the wrong thing, the manager's going to get paid off because they're not doing the right thing.
Is there an easy way of clearing all that stuff up, like your small arm vacuum cleaners or something?
It's supposed to carry the small vacuums, but again, what they should do, when they cut the shard, they should have the sin bin next to it and go straight into the sin bin. My lad's a fibre jointer. And I said to him, have you ever, anything been mentioned at your team meeting about fibre shards? Nothing. It's frightening. It's frightening. Right. I think that's me. Oh no, just one, back one. I mentioned before about cable returns. I was in Northallerton last week, and all these cables here, massive cables, is what the yard marshals have returned. Last year, we found £6.5 million of the cable sat in our yards not being used. Now, we're not very popular because managers want to keep cable just in case. We can't do that as a business. That 6.5 million has been reused and sent back out. When we go on site and we find a cable, a cable compound that's overspilling and overflowing, and with cable drums outside the compound, we label it, we look at the estimate, we make sure the estimate's closed, and we send it back. We don't do it because we want to. That money doesn't come to me, that money gets split and put back into operations. So whatever estimate is on that, say it's service delivery or FND, goes back to that relevant OUC. Marlin is an external contractor that we use for scrap, so if it's a certain item code, if it's a certain length of cable, it'll go to Marlin, they'll test it, return it, send it as a short length. Real returns are small joints, so it's like small old joints that are just lying around the floor, surplus stock, surplus equipment, that goes back in. And then we also get a number for scrappage now, so the scrap bin that's out there, the skip, that gets tracked as well, because it's all part of our revenue. This year alone, we've identified already £2.5 million worth of surplus. Because we're working with civils, because civils are expanding, they're getting us on site, we're removing their surplus, and we're also working with property because there's a few TCs that are closing down, so we're going into the yards and recovering the surplus. We don't knock on doors, we don't clear faults, we're a cost of the business. This is one way that we pay for ourselves. But it also keeps the sites compliant, keeps the compounds tidy. There's a brand new compound out there that we pushed hard for. And it just makes the fact that an engineer turns up for the right cable, they're not climbing all over other drums to get to theirs, they're not taking the wrong cable drum. In emergencies they may do, but we are getting feedback that it's good. If anybody's been to Leeds, Dewsbury Road, Andy Rickardson did a sidewalk safety meeting there yesterday. There's an email in my inbox this morning saying the site's looking fantastic. Dewsbury Road used to be a pain. Now if we turn the corner on Dewsbury Road, I'm more than happy. Okay? That's one from me. CBRE help desk. Raise any concerns you've got via that system. If you don't get the support you need, feed it. You're going to be busy, John. Feed it through John, and he can let me know. But I am asking for each of the out there's a supply chain. He's got to do a D2 check once a week. He walks the site once a week. I'm asking that once he submits anything to CBRE, it gets categorised under supply chain. So the D2, so we can pull out the checks he's doing. For you guys, when you raise a job with CBRE, I want them to capture that it's a USR. So we can track that job from a USR to know what's happening. So that's what I'm looking for. There's a lot that needs to work with these guys. They've just moved the business now. They've gone from PNFS within BT over to CBRE. I've only just started to see the Mon-Job report coming through, and we've already lost 6 weeks of the year. And some of the stuff that's in, I think 175 jobs down to my team, I would say 50, 60 of them jobs should be sat with TSO.